Mama, I got bad news, bad news. I've been rolling with some bad dudes, bad dudes. I've been trying to get a bag too,
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Ashes to Awesome podcast, Rising in Recovery. Our podcast provides light, hope, and understanding about addiction and mental health to those living within that life and the people who love them. This episode is brought to you by Together We Can, where Canada recovers from addiction. That's twcrecoverylife.org. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Weekend Ramble on the Ashes to Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Chuck LaFlange, and, well, today I'm alone for the Weekend Ramble, which is, it's the first time that this has happened. So, Dr. Lisa had some family commitments. She's out in Vancouver visiting her brother. Carl the Atheist and I kind of crossed lines yesterday, and I'm sure we'd get together this morning to make a recording, but, I've got some family commitments myself this afternoon, and I thought, this might be an opportunity instead of a challenge the way I've been looking at it. And, to be honest, I've been quite stressed out about it all weekend. And it occurred to me that maybe we'd do something a little bit different. And maybe I'd just take this one on solo and, well, let's see where things go, right? So my idea was that, I spend a lot of time now making reels for Facebook. And for you listeners that don't or haven't checked that out, I guess, maybe give it a go. I spend a lot of time working on them. The idea is to promote the show, but as importantly as promoting the show is some of the things that get said in these reels are quite profound. They're things that make a huge difference in my life, and I feel like that message is a pretty important one to share, and I kind of wanted to get it out there. So what I thought I would do is share with you some of my favorite reels, and for the people listening, you can hear the reel, and what is said is just as important as what you can see in the video. And of course, if you are just listening and you would like to see it, you can check us out on Spotify, where you can watch or listen, or on YouTube, where all the episodes go up as well as do all the reels on YouTube and Facebook, TikTok, and all the socials. So why don't we just get into it, and we'll start out with one that really kind of blew my mind, and a guy that has blown my mind. I quite often say that he has been my favorite guest on the show. I've had a lot of really fantastic guests, and my co-hosts in that as well, of course. But Devin McGuire from Revolution Recovery, who's of course a sponsor of the show, him and I just had a dynamic when he came on the show. His first episode was 85 when he was on, and we talked about a lot of things, and a lot of which was harm reduction, and kind of his thoughts on harm reduction, which sparked some not so great responses from people. At one point, I know somebody had called him, saying, "This is so-and-so. I hope you get addicted to fentanyl and have to detox on a cold concrete floor in jail," or something to that effect. He was speaking of his thoughts on harm reduction and how maybe we spend too much time doing that instead of, maybe letting some of these people face some of the consequences of their actions. And where he comes from is love. It's always love with Devin. And when we had our conversation, it was the way I described it in the episode description on Facebook was laugh, cry, repeat, because that's what we did. We laughed, we cried, and, we did it again. The man loves people. He loves all people, right? So when he said these things, it wasn't coming from this kind of what would be a stereotypical conservative mindset of, let them suffer. It was maybe we could just get people sober long enough to make sane decisions. But here's a reel that resulted from that episode, and I thought it was powerful. So, I don't know. Listen to him.
You're asking an insane person to make a sane decision on their life. So it's unrealistic. And it's tough because addiction as a whole, there's a pretty broad scale on like the severity of people's addiction. So when people are at their worst and they're in the complete grips of addiction with fentanyl and meth, and they're up for days and they're dope sick and everything else, like they're not going to choose anything but that. Here it's, they commit multiple crimes a day, they get arrested, they get released, commit a whole bunch more crimes, all of it, arrested, let go again, and then if they do get held for a bit, they're given so much, like just medications and everything. So they're at no point are there any, why would anybody ever want to change? There's no like consequence to it. And it's like, well, yeah, what I want to do is give people an opportunity to get their life back. And sometimes that may be a little bit harsh.
So I don't know what your thoughts are on it. And I welcome your thoughts. If you guys on Spotify, if you want to comment, if you're watching on YouTube, if you want to check them out, or put your comments in the comments below on any one of these reels. But Devin's coming from a place of love at the end of the day. And, he also does interventions, which to us, at Ashes to Awesome, before we were enlightened, I shouldn't speak for us, I should speak for myself. I had a preconception about interventions, and, that they were this kind of cold, harsh, you're going to do it this way or else, or else we're going to cut you off, we're going to stop loving you. And that's not the case, at least now with my recent exposure to people that do interventions. And I think he's an incredible guy. At the end of the day, he operates these places at no profit to himself, none. He has to do other work outside of his Revolution Recovery to pay his own bills, because he makes zero money doing what he does, and he spends all of his time, like a ridiculous amount of time, doing this. He's one of the busiest human beings I've ever met. So that alone, I guess, to me, speaks to who he is as a person and where he comes from as far as addiction and recovery goes. So, yeah, that's Devin's Real. And again, one of my favorite guests ever. He was at 85, was a 2-part episode, and that's the one I'm really speaking of. Episode 104 is where he kind of came back to address some of those concerns that people had voiced about his comments, and really where that reel came from was episode 104. So, which reminds me, I should go back to 85, and maybe there's an opportunity to make a couple reels out of that, because he said some pretty engaging shit, to say the least, right? So, my next one up, Oh, I'm just going to do them in order rather than try and find an order to do them in, right? My next one is from Lisa, Dr. Lisa, we call her now. I was referring to her as Lisa 101 for a while, but Lisa, for listeners that aren't aware, is a regular co-host on the Weekend Ramble here. And she's fought addiction as a conscripted soldier, as I often call people in that position, alongside her brother for more than 20 years. And being a psychiatrist and, having this kind of lived experience, she's got this unique perspective on things, and I'm humbled every weekend when she comes on the show and speaks to us like we're peers. I mean, I don't even have a high school education. Christ, I barely have a junior high education, at grade 9. So when I'm speaking to Lisa, I'm quite often in awe of the fact that not only does she take the time out of what's a crazy busy life, she's got a family, she is a psychiatrist and all things that go with that, but how she speaks to us, like we're peers or something. And I'm absolutely in awe of that all the time, and I have a lot of love for Lisa. She's an amazing person. So this one comes from her, and it speaks to about whether or not addiction is a choice, right? So here, we'll just let it speak for itself.
This whole, what we're talking about right now with choices, right? And people sort of pathologizing people with addiction as, well, you made the choice. This is a consequence of your choice. It came up in a conversation with an ex-boyfriend of mine, somebody who had no lived experience with addiction. This is a guy who he had partied, he'd done ecstasy, he'd done cocaine. Like, how as a teenager did my brother make any decision or choice different than you did? He had made the same choices you did. He felt like he was young, he was a teenager, he was invincible, as a lot of teenagers think they are. The difference is I think that my brother was predisposed to this suffering. For him, those decisions were catastrophic. And I think other people are able to make the same choices and decisions, but they're able to walk away one day. So to me, it's like, how do we blame people who end up suffering in this disease for making the same choices that so many people make?
Okay, so Lisa, I mean, what can I say about Lisa, right? She speaks to us like we're peers on the show, and to me, I feel humbled by that every single weekend when she comes on. And for those of you that don't know Dr. Lisa's history with the show, well, her history in general, she lays it out in episode 101, which is why I was calling her Lisa 101 for a little while there. But at the end of the day, you know what? She's a doctor. She's a psychiatrist, and I think she deserves that title, and we should be calling her as such, right? So Lisa 101 just didn't do her justice, and that's why we call her Dr. Lisa now. But Lisa was an oil field engineer, and she quit her job in the oil field. And for those of you that aren't, from that part of the world like we are, oil field engineer is a high-paying job, to say the least. She quit that job to go back to school, become a psychiatrist, to understand her brother's struggle. Being in addiction for 23 years or whatever it has been, And to me, that says enough about who she is as a person, right? To really start taking her seriously. But the combined experience of her profession and her lived experience gives Lisa this unique perspective on things that I think is invaluable to the show. She heard Devin's episode, and of course, Devin and her brother are Devin's helping him in his recovery at Revolution Recovery. So she had heard Devin on the show. She contacted me the very next day, and the day after that, she came on a Weekend Ramble, and she has been on every single Weekend Ramble since, save 2, maybe 3 at the outside, because, being on holidays or other commitments or whatever. But this is a mom, this is a wife, this is a psychiatrist who's taking time out of her life to come on the show every weekend and help spread the message. And I don't think I could express how appreciative I am of that. And the fact that she speaks to us like we're peers. I have a grade 9 education. This is a highly educated individual who comes on the show and shares her thoughts and speaks to us like we are her peers. And to me, I am humbled and honored that she does that. Speaking to choice and addiction the way she did in that reel was a profound moment for me. It was one of those, and you'll hear that word profound quite a bit, I think, in this episode, because the reels I picked for a reason, right? She really helped me to verbalize what I guess I knew, but it helps me make that argument, if you want to call it that, to people that think differently about it. And, well, that's your choice. And it's like, well, do you think that's what I was doing out there for 30 years? Do you think I was out there choosing to fuck up my life? No, I wasn't. Right? I was surviving. I was getting by. I was doing whatever the hell I had to do. And not that you shouldn't be held accountable for your actions, because, yeah, you do need to be held accountable. But she really helped me put things into perspective. And again, in a way to verbalize something that I guess I knew deep down, which happens a lot in these reels and these episodes and the people that we talk to. I mean, I've had such great guests on the show, and that's the biggest thing that I pull from it, is the ability to verbalize something that I think I knew already, just didn't know how to say it, right? So, yeah, that's that one. Moving on to the next one with Carl the Atheist here. Now, we'd had a conversation about where the episode started, I guess, was a couple weeks ago on the Weekend Ramble. I had Daniel Unmanageable from the Hard Knocks Talks live video podcast, who to me is like, he's kind of like a rock star. I've been watching that guy since I first started, and kind of trying to steal some of his interview techniques, because he's very, very good at what he does. Very intelligent man, very enlightened man. So he came on the show, and we were talking about whether or not you're an addict forever. And the conversation kind of morphed the way it does, in any good conversation, right? It kind of morphed off into this thing about religion and recovery. And Carl the Atheist, for those of you that don't know, again, he's one of my regular co-hosts on the Weekend Ramble. Friends since we were like 18 years old, right? And we lost touch for 20 some odd years. Got back into touch, and him and his wife have been amazing people in my life. They just kind of welcomed me back into their life. And, I'd been estranged from a lot of people for a long time, doing whatever the hell I was doing out there in active addiction. So Carl I love the man. I absolutely love the man as a friend of mine. And, and I look up to him quite a bit. But anyway, here's his thoughts on religion and how that went in that conversation. And I thought it was great. Check it out.
Me away from that and trying to find something that is going to work for you. I had to look within my support group and find things that, would help me. Just the way my brain works. I'm very logical. I'm very linear. And, it's a real big deterrent for people. That's why I go by Carl the Atheist, right? It's, you don't have to be religious to be sober. You don't have to. Yeah. You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to say the Lord's Prayer. What you need to do is look inside yourself and see where you want to be and who you want to be, and try and achieve that through support through.
So there's Carl the Atheist's thoughts on that, and he's right? Which actually kind of, I'll speak about this briefly, and I don't want to get into trouble with it, but I'll express some frustration. So one of the things I was trying to do for today's episode was to get somebody from Smart Recovery to come on, because to me, Smart Recovery is, I'll get shot for saying this, but it is the kind of non-God version of AAA, the science version of AA. There's a fellowship there, there's a community there, and that's my understanding of it. Here's the problem, though, with Smart Recovery that I found, at least trying to find information, huge reluctance from people to talk about it. And actually, in that very same episode that I just played with Carl the Atheist, Daniel Unmanageable had said to me that he had a hard time finding people from that community to come on the show. And I've really experienced that in the last couple days. I've tried very hard to get somebody from all over Canada and the U.S., and I've got a couple people that are willing, and I think next weekend we'll get them on. But there's this weird veil of secrecy. It's like a Scientology vibe I get from that community, and it's definitely something I'm going to ask about when they come on the show. And I'm not trying to expose anything. Quite the opposite. I've been trying to help them get their word out because it seems like such a great thing. And that's really one of the frustrations, and kind of one of the reasons that I'm sitting here alone doing this episode right now. Which, you know what, at the end of the day, the further into the episode I get, the happier I am that things played out the way that they did. I think it's a fantastic opportunity, right? So, hey, before we play another reel, I'm going to do kind of a weird thing here. I'm going to play this commercial that I got from the Mission Community Services Society, and it's a visual reel, and it's got a little bit of music, but there's some text in there that I'm going to read out for the listeners, because it was submitted to me as a commercial for them, which I've agreed to do some advertising for them. Is they have this crazy upcoming fundraiser, and I think it's just a really great thing. And we're gonna cover that fundraiser. But here, I'll play the commercial, I'll read the text, and maybe I'll talk a bit more right after that. So here it is. All right, so 24-hour homeless fundraiser. Change starts with you. 10 participants will go unhoused for an immersive experience of being homeless as a way to raise awareness and funds for Mission's new community medical mobile units, MMU. Your donation will help bring to life projects the community needs. The funds raised will go towards keeping Mission's medical mobile unit on the road to serve our community's marginalized individuals. The MMU will be equipped with medical supplies and nurse practitioner physician collaborative to offer basic medical care and social support to the unhoused, vulnerable seniors, youth, and new Canadians to Mission. The actions you take, big or small, are powerful tools that can help empower others. Together, we can create positive change. To donate or learn more, go to tinyurl.com/4622YBJM. Of course, you can get that in the show notes as well. We can create positive change. So they've got $25,000 raised so far. To donate or to learn more, go to tinyurl.com/4622YBJM. That's tinyurl.com. Well, you heard it. Okay. Anyway, I'll put that link in the description, guys, in the show notes. So, yeah, that whole fundraiser thing is just awesome. So what we're going to do, though, with these people that participate in it, is we're going to interview them, just little quick 5-minute interviews before they go into this immersive experience and after. I'm really looking forward to that, to see what people have taken from it and all that stuff, right? So I'm really glad to be helping the Mission Community Services Society with that. I think it's a fantastic fundraiser, and yeah, that's coming up pretty soon. So check out their website, guys, and if you just Google, again, I'll put the link in there, but if you Google Mission Community Services Society and you want to help out, just a couple bucks or whatever, it sure be great. That mobile medical unit's going to help out a ton of people. So check it out. Moving on. So the next one here, Mike Miller from the Yatra Treatment Center came on a Weekend Ramble, and Mike is one of my favorite guests as well. The guy is like, he knows so much, right? And he had his 20-year date on the show. Actually, he came on the show. I think it was his first appearance on the show. He came on for his 20-year date, and Mike he's awesome. The guy is just awesome out there. He knows so much about trauma treatment and so much about recovery as well, right? He's spent a lot of time in the rooms over the years, and he's another person, and which we're finding more and more of, that never takes away from the power of the 12-step programs, of course, because they got him to where he was, but also kind of embraces different ways, right? Different different modalities, different techniques, different whatever you want to call them, recovery ideas, and I just love Mike. I think he's great. So here he was talking about prevention or punishment, and we did quite a long episode about a long conversation inside an episode about that very thing. But here's the reel that I made from that, and that.
I mean,
True story.
Come on, just get your shit together, people.
It sure feels that way sometimes, right?
But the thing that you can't get away from in that is the moral model, and like people just look down on drug addicts and think like, I don't want my tax dollars going to those people, to that stuff, and they want to punish
think
people.
they are when they go to jail, right?
Well, exactly, right.
Yeah.
But the politicians don't fire that up as the thing to get people like super angry and get to the polls and vote for them and everything. They don't go, hey, do you know that actually treatment would allow us to do less policing, and if we paid for them to get clean, you wouldn't have them in the courts and probation and jails and et cetera, or in the
emergency room, waiting room.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the emergency room where you go in and complain about your health care because you're waiting, and it's because there's such a drag on it, and some of it is because these people that aren't well end up harming themselves in some way, through misadventure or whatever it is. And end up in emergency rooms or whether it's psychiatric needs or whatever, like that could ease every aspect of our legal and medical system. But people go, yeah, but I don't want my money going to that.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's crazy, perception.
But they're fired up about it, like that's the whole thing. They get wound up and pointed at, the people, the sort of predator class of rich people love nothing more than pointing working class people at the underprivileged people or people that are struggling.
For more info, go to www.ituapodcast.com.
There, I was playing with this text to voice thing that my video editing software has, and that's where that came from. I thought it was kind of cute, but you get the idea, right? It's we focus everything on punishing people, and Dr. Lisa brought up in an episode that there's been this study done, and I'll be careful about what I quote because I don't necessarily remember every detail, but it was about every dollar a government, and this has been apparently repeated, around the world a few times. For every dollar a government puts into treatment, they get 6 back in productive members of society out of the deal. So what he's talking about here is, we complain about people in an emergency room or whatever, causing, grief to other people that aren't addicted to whatever substance. And about how, hey, what if we stopped and shifted our mindset and went to helping those people instead of focusing on punishing them, right? And at the end of the day, punishing them for being sick, because addiction it's being sick. Right? Nobody chooses that life, period. Nobody wants to be in that place. And let me tell you, from being there, it is a horrible and lonely and shitty place. Nobody wants to be there. So, anyway, I'll get wound up. Again, Mike from Yacht Treatment, he's amazing. And again, he's another guy that's turned into a sponsor, which tends to happen. People come on the show and they end up becoming sponsors because, they care about the message we're trying to spread. And I'm pretty proud of that. I'm really proud of that, as a matter of fact. So, moving on. I didn't rename this clip, so I have no idea which one it is, so I can't introduce it properly. Lord help me. But we're going to play it anyway, and, well, let's see what comes of it. Jesus, right? I like that.
Well, and if they relapse, then keep loving them.
Yeah, right.
And if they do it again, keep loving them. Because the only thing I needed was somebody to believe in me.
Yeah.
Just for a goddamn second. Like, just somebody that thought I could do it. That I could be who I wanted to be. Like, one person, that's what I needed. So what, instead of this, like, let's mitigate relapse, why don't we just be that one person that believes in the face of 15, 20 relapses, 10 treatment centers? What if you're that one person that is like, you know what? And what if it doesn't work? And they still pass because of a drug poisoning? And at least you get to know 2 things. A, their suffering is over, and B, you did everything you could to love that person. And when they left, you can guarantee one of the last thoughts they had was that person loved
All right. So, now I remember when that was. What if they relapse? That episode was the most recent one I recorded with Ryan, and that was a big one for me. Actually, what you don't see in that clip is the emotion evoked from it, and mainly because it felt that way too when I was in active addiction, that nobody, would believe in me. A lot of that was self-induced, as I wasn't reaching out to my family. Basically, my active addiction was spent estranged from everybody I knew and cared about, and that cared about me, and it sucked. So anyway, the other thing that really hit hard for me was I talk to moms every week who have lost their kids, sisters or brothers or whomever, and that what if they don't, what if they do pass and die of a drug poisoning? And I just, it invoked a lot of emotion, and that particular reel has become extremely popular. Excuse me. That episode has become very popular as well. It's hitting hard on social media. And why do we relapse is what it was titled. And I really like how Ryan took that and turned it around and went, well, okay, who cares why? Just be that person, right? And I must have watched that reel 100 times when I edited it and created it, and every single time it invoked the same amount of emotion from me, and it still does now. It makes me well up, right? So, hey, yeah, if you've got someone in your life, and I know a lot of our listeners do. I think most of our listeners are actually family members of people who are in addiction, not so much people in recovery or addiction themselves, right? So I think that's great advice. Just keep loving them, right? Just keep loving them, Anyway, that one's heavy. This next one was an episode Ryan and I did together some time ago, and it's called "Turn Sorry into Thank You," and it's actually resulted in my first crack at an ebook, which you can get on the website. Listen to it, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Every time you want to say sorry to somebody, say thank you instead. Thank you for giving me another shot. Not sorry that I did this. And I don't just mean when you're sitting there having that conversation. I mean, if you're sitting there wallowing in guilt, and I'm going to say shame, even though we shouldn't be in shame, but if these are the things that are affecting you right now,
don't want to be in
what
shame.
You did to your mother, your sister, your brother, your whoever, call them and say thank you for giving me another chance. A fundamental shift in their reactions to you and how you perceive everything is amazing. Those gratitudes are, they're everything to me.
Give that a little space, because that's profound. I don't like the word sorry.
No.
I like the thank you, and all the other thing is right. Thank you for helping me become a better person. Yeah. Unfortunately, you had to go through some pain. Pain is a constant. We're always going to have pain. That's part of life. Suffering is a choice. And I would say, how much of this you want to suffer, and how much do you want to get going and moving.
All right, so turn stories into thank yous. This is something I believed in wholeheartedly for well over a year now. That it's kind of a mentality I took on, and it's not a new concept, but to me it was a new concept. And when it occurred to me, it was a very new concept, because I found myself apologizing a lot, not just after a relapse, but in general, for all the shitty things I had done. And again, most of my active addiction was spent estranged from my family. I wasn't that guy, stealing jewelry and that kind of thing, but I still felt a lot of guilt for it. And that when I stopped and I started turning those sorries into thank yous, everything changed. It changed my personal mindset, changed the way my mother, for instance, reacted to it. Was very different. Remember, the person that you're saying it to is really where the shift happens, because for them, they don't have to. It doesn't have to be this negative thing now. For them now, they can turn it into a positive thing and say, "Well, you're welcome for giving you another chance. Or you're welcome for believing in you." Right? Which this kind of goes back to that clip about what if they relapse, and just love them. So, turn sorry into thank you for me is a really big deal. And again, you can check out the ebook there, but that's not what this episode's about. So, hey, we're going to take a quick break for a PSA, and we'll be right back. And now for a quick PSA brought to you by
Revolution Recovery, helping men recover and become their best selves through support and treatment. They've been there and they understand.
Hey everyone, this is Ryan Bathgate from Kaleidoscope Wednesdays. I wanted to bring a public service announcement to you today about Narcan, or also known as naloxone. These kits have saved so many lives over the years. I can attest for that. Being in the industry for so long, I can tell you since we've had the opioid crisis declared in 2016, it has saved thousands of lives, and I've watched it personally save hundreds of lives. These kits are small, easy to use. You can keep them in your glove box or in a cupboard in your home, and you never know when somebody's going to need them. If you have a hard time finding a Narcan kit in your area, just email us here at ashes2awesomepodcast@gmail.com. Throw Narcan in the subject line, tell us where you are, and we'll do the legwork to find that for you. If you wanted to send me a question for my Kaleidoscope Wednesdays, again, email ashes2awesomepodcast@gmail.com. We will read that question on air, and I'll do my best to answer it in a comprehensive way. That's all I have for now, and we'll go back to the show. Thanks for listening.
All right. So, that PSA, guys, it is so important. And for you that are listening to the show and not watching, during that commercial, I played 14 different episode covers from the people that we've done Memorial Mondays for, that Narcan could have saved. Each and every single one of those people, had Narcan been on hand, all the circumstances are different, but had Narcan been on hand for any one of those deaths, that episode wouldn't have been made. It's that simple. It's that easy. And, you know, in Canada, it's free. In the U.S., I know that changes state to state, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But if you can't find it for free in your area, we're dead serious. Give us a call. We'll find a way to get you some for free and just to have it on hand. Right? It's all the difference in the world, guys. And, you know, you could really save the life of somebody that's loved or that loves. Right? And you know what? I'm going to take a minute now to speak to the Memorial Mondays. So now that I've introduced video, I cannot do a 6-day-a-week format. I can't. That's a bit of a cop-out, though, because part of the reason that I'm not doing them is Memorial Mondays were just too much to do every week. I'll be blunt. They were really hard to do week over week over week for my own mental health. Right? I'm by nature an empathetic person, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't. The sadness, the unbelievable sadness was just too much. You know, I just couldn't do it. But sometimes you got to put that shit aside, right? So what I'm trying to do now is every third week or so, and you know, I'm talking to a couple different people now about doing something for their Los Angeles, and I hope that by next week, I'll have another Memorial Monday out, and I'll keep rotating them in, right? The idea being the Wednesdays and the weekends are static; they're going to stay, and the other days of the week, the Mondays and Mondays, Tuesdays and Tuesdays, of course, were like your kind of typical recovery story, and then Family Fridays as well. We're just kind of rotating those in so that you know, it's a little bit different every week. And Family Fridays, of course, is when we interview somebody who is an addicted or a conscripted soldier in the fight against addiction alongside one of their loved ones. Quite often it's a mother talking about, you know, fighting addiction alongside their kid or whatever. So anyway, that's what's going on with those. And yeah, that's that. So moving on. The next one I want to play is, well, it's instead of doing a commercial, because Rich Johnson from Rosecrest Recovery Services has generously come on as a kind of a temporary sponsor anyway. And I want to play a reel with him about post-intervention. And well, I just love this guy too. Like, he's turned out to be another incredible guest of mine. And he's one of those guys that took what we thought we knew about interventions and kind of turned it on its head. And he's really, you know, he's an amazing guy. In this particular one, we were talking to him about what happens with the family after an intervention. So, okay, the person, it's been successful intervention. The person has gone to treatment, but now what? What about the family? And here's what he said about it. And I think you'll agree with me. Pretty powerful stuff. So check it out. Is that a standard practice?
A lot of interventionists are acting as transporters too. Post interventions, when you suture everything back up, no, that them getting in the car with me and going to treatment and then leaving my family with an open wound is a terribly irresponsible way to do things. Because exactly like Lisa, how long ago was your brother's intervention?
4.5 years ago.
4.5 years ago, you still got a bad taste in your mouth from what happened. If you're my family, then you have a rapport with me now. I want to immediately, like, while everything is still open, while it's all still fresh, I want to address all this stuff.
One of the fundamental things that I take a lot of pride in with the show, right, is that we focus so much on the families, and that's what makes us different than pretty much all the other podcasts. What you're saying right now warms my heart, Rich. It really does, right? Because what for every addict, 5 people for sure that are like really severely affected by it. All right. So, yeah, I mean, listen to that, right? He sticks around. He talks to the family. He makes sure everybody's okay. And you know, Lisa had answered, 4.5 years ago. And the reason that he had asked her that question was, you know, after 4.5 years, she's still not a fan of interventions, right? She still has a sour taste in her mouth about what happened with her brother. And not that the interventionist did anything wrong, per se, just that she didn't like how he kind of felt cornered. And you know, that's her brother. She empathizes with him more than anybody. And it's kind of led to that whole, you know, vernacular of conversation there. And I think Rich really spoke to who he was when he answered that question. And that's why I'm such a big fan of his. So if, in fact, you do want to speak to Rich, you know, if you need some help and you know, you're in the U.S., no, he's based out of Florida, but he certainly covers much more area than that. I've got his information here. You can give him a call at 615-484-8792, or you can email him at info@rosecrestrecoveryservices.com, and he'll help you out, right? So I actually had one of my memorial sisters was messaging me, talking about another family member that was, you know, in addiction, and she's having a really hard time with, you know, she didn't know what to do. And of course, I've got, you know, I don't have a lot of contacts in the U.S., right? I've got very few. So I messaged Rich and said, hey, man, can you help this person out? And he was all over it, like a fat kid on cake, right? So, again, that really speaks to who Rich is as a person. And if you're going to support anybody in that industry, I'd say he's a great person to support. So check him out, guys. Moving on. We're going into another Ryan Bathgate one. Actually, I think the rest of them now would be Ryan Bathgates. And fuck, I'm okay with that. So this one is called Fuck the Noise. And it's one of the first reels I created with Ryan. And, well, check it out.
Fuck the noise. Fuck the noise, man. But I really mean that. Like, the noise is just, well, I mean, it's a distraction. It's a complete distraction from what's important in my life. And so if I'm an existential vacuum, I'm worried about everything else that is, the things that are important to me are full of energy, fire, and emotion, and it scares the shit out of me. And that's why I use perception. I can control my effort, I can control commitment, and I can control my environment, and everything else is out of my control, and I don't even fucking need it.
Well said, Mr. Bathgate, right? What else? I mean, fuck the noise. We all spend so much time paying attention to the things that we can't control. And at the end of the day, if we just focus on the things we can and ignore the noise, our lives will be so much better for it. And the things we can control are, and let me see if I get this right, Bathgate, and he just did say them, so I should get it right. Commitment, effort, environment, and perception, right? So 4 things you can control. So you can control the amount of effort you put into any one thing. Pay attention to the other 3. I mean, if you're putting effort into those, you're going to do a lot better. Environment, hey, it's up to you where you are, right? It's up to you who you surround yourself in. And I know there's a ton of excuses we can make for that, but at the end of the day, it is one of the things you can absolutely control. Effort, commitment, perception, and I can't remember the 4th one now. Son of a bitch, right? Perception, though, you know, it's up to us how we look at things at the end of the day. And, you know, for me, I've been saying for years, is one of the only things we can control is how we react, right? So it doesn't, you know, it's up to us, right? And I'm sorry, I can't remember the 4th one, but in the interest of making the thing, you know, continue on here, I'll kind of move past it, and I'll get shit from Ryan for that later. Right? Son of a bitch. So it is what it is. So, right. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. I love this one. I absolutely love this one. Listen to it. Watch it if you're watching it. I've listened to it 100 times, and I still get fired up every single time I listen to it. This is another Bathgate, so check it out, guys. Yeah.
Can handle pain, that means that I can handle love, and love is the fucking answer, and it always is. And always will be. And that's the thing that's kept us on this planet for 125,000 years. It's not our thoughts. It's the fact that we love one another, and we love one another without apology. And there's no such thing as unconditional love, because it's all unconditional. It's not love, it's a transaction. And once love becomes a transaction, it's not love anymore, it's barter. And like, this is the answer to how to live this life with fulfillment and beauty. And like, I can, at any moment in my life, I can fucking stop and change the way I see the world. I just need to put the lens of beauty on for 10 seconds, and I'll change everything in my life.
Love is the answer, right? And he's right. At the end of the day, how can you argue with anything he just said, right? I mean, I think that one speaks for enough. I don't even have to sit here and go on about it, because it's just so real, right? The whole thing is just real. So yeah, that's that. Next one up here. This is an old one that I've redone, and I think it's, for me, in a personal way. Well, I'll play it and then I'll speak to that. Okay, go ahead.
Carry, like, we always say fear and curiosity, same characteristics, different part of the joy line. Well, anxiety and excitement also have the same characteristics.
Yeah.
And so, what if I could, just lived question, what if I could turn my anxiety into excitement?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And like, if I had that choice, wow, I choose excitement.
Yeah, of course.
Anxiety or excitement is an energized state of enthusiasm.
Okay.
So that's all, and it's a choice. I want to be excited about, or I want to be anxiety about. What do you choose? It becomes like this. When we go to the high probability of negative happenings that, are quite fictional in our mind, but we live in that space. And I know that, like, I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people that live in this place often.
Yeah, right.
And
No kidding. Yeah.
I would not consider their life peaceful.
All right, so there's another Ryan Bathgate for you, right? And again, for listeners that aren't watching it, just said that at the end of the reel. Ryan's on every Wednesday with me. It's the RBK Kaleidoscope, Ryan Bathgate Kaleidoscope. He's amazing, right? He really is. And for me personally, fear or anxiety, I deal with a lot of PTSD from some of the crazy shit that happened to me in active addiction. And some of the crazy circumstances I put myself in, let's be honest, when I was in active addiction. And the idea of turning anxiety into excitement is kind of a big deal, right? It's a really big deal. But when you think about it, right, it does make sense, right? He worded it so eloquently there that it just makes sense, right? And for me, that's been another one of those profound things that's really helped me to kind of address it and move forward from some of the things that I have a hard time doing just that from. So yeah, that's that. Hey guys, anyway, brings you to my favorite part of the show, and that's Daily Gratitudes.
Today's Daily Gratitudes are brought to you by Yatra Treatment Centers in Phuket, Thailand. They are a clinic run by clinicians, not a business run by businessmen. And they know that where addiction is the smoke, trauma is the fire. Learn more at yatracenters.com. That's YATRACENTRE.com. And now here.
All right, guys. So, again, that's Mike Miller from Yatra Treatment Centers. He was in one of the reels earlier, and yeah, I just love them guys out there. So, Daily Gratitudes. So, you know what? Today, I am more thankful for my co-host than I ever have been before, because I've had to do this. I've got to do this one on my own, as Carl would very quickly, correct me into acknowledging there. Yeah. Today I got to do one on my own, but I am very thankful for my co-hosts, because I've kind of gotten to rely on them in their time, and maybe I'll be a bit more appreciative of that in the weekends to come for the Weekend Ramble. I'm also very thankful of the great guests that we have on, whether it's Devin McGuire, Ryan Bathgate every week, Dr. Lisa, Carl the Atheist, Rich Johnston. It just never ends. Mike Miller. These people are amazing. They're absolutely amazing. And they're giving the time, not to me, but to you, the listeners, and to now the watchers, of course, because we do video, because they believe so much in the message, right? So, guys, please, right, keep listening, keep sharing, all those things. We'll get back to that in a second. I'm also, I'm thankful for my sobriety, right? I'll be honest, this last week or two, I've been having kind of a rough time in my own personal, what's going on in my head. And it's not been easy. It's not been easy at all. I've been probably more tempted lately to, to take the edge off or whatever than I ever have been. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I'm sitting here now sober. I'm thankful that I managed to maintain that. And I'm forever gracious for that. Right. So, and lastly, guys, it's you, the listeners. You guys are absolutely amazing. Keep listening, keep sharing, keep talking about it, keep, doing all the things. If you're on Spotify, give a comment. If you're watching or listening, if you're on YouTube, give a comment. Come check out the Facebook page, give a like, give a share, all that stuff to the real. I'm now on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I'm all over the damn place. So if you're on any platform, check us out, guys. Give a like, give a share if anything that you're interested in or that catches your eye. I sure do appreciate it. Every time you do any one of these things, you're getting me a little bit closer to living my best life. My best life is to make a humble living spreading the message. The message is this. If you are in active addiction right now, today could be the day. Today could be the day that you start that lifelong journey. Reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member, call into detox, go to a meeting, do whatever the hell it is you need to do to get that journey started, because it is so much better than the alternative. And if you are the loved one of somebody who's suffering addiction right now, you've just taken the time to listen to me ramble on, maybe take another minute out of your day and text that person. Let them know they're loved. Use the words, "You are loved." That little glimmer of hope just might be the thing that brings them back.